episode. Well, I guess it's not the first episode. It's the second episode. It's episode 1, but the second episode of Brewluminati, the podcast where we drink beer and talk about conspiracy theories. My name is John.
This is Jake.
And welcome to the show. So, Jake, do you want to take it away with the beer we're drinking?
For sure. So today we picked up a local one from Durham, and it's a from Glass Jug Beer Lab, which is out on NC 55. And this is a Stone Fruit Pie Goes Style Sour Ale. It's definitely a weird beer, and I feel like we say that every time. But it's described as crisp and refreshingly tart. I don't know. It's not horrible. It's ranking in at a 4.2% alcohol volume, but I don't know. To me, it kind of tastes like a herbal tea I left on the counter for too long.
Yeah, like I just took a swig of it, and I wouldn't necessarily call it tart. Like being a goes whatever, it's definitely sour. Like it hits me with that weird back of the mouth soury kind of jam going on, but I don't really feel like it's that tart. It is 0% sweet. Like there's no Berliner-ishness to this at all. It is 0% sweet. And so like to me it just feels like it's like a LaCroix. But
that's actually a really good way to put it.
I don't know what kind of fruit is supposed to be in this, but it's more like weird tea. Like you said, it's like weird tea that got left out on the counter for too long and just got kind of warm, and there's no like carbonation or bubbly-ishness to it. And it also doesn't taste like beer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
It's like a stone fruit LaCroix.
I don't even know what stone fruit is. What is stone fruit?
It's written on the front. I think that's that yellow. No, that's star fruit. So
it says stone fruit.
It does say stone
pie,
fruit. Right,
but pie like PI, like the number.
Yeah. But it also says tart, refreshing, and fruity. So, I mean, you know.
I didn't find it that fruity or tart. Or I guess it's kind of refreshing if you like tea.
I think the problem is they're kind of like floating between two things, and they didn't go enough sour and they didn't go enough goes. And, you know, I like the Funkatorium, like in Asheville and all that stuff. Like where you go super sour. So
that place is lit. Like people love
it.
Spot.
It is.
It's crazy.
I went there right when the whole pandemic started, and it was like the first place to really open back up. And they had people on the street like waving people in. It was pretty cool. Yeah, they were just like, we're open. And we were just wandering through.
Come drink our sour beer that has to be brewed separately from everything else that we brew. It's a huge pain in the ass, but we still do it for some odd reason.
Because apparently it'll ruin every other beer that's in the same room.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I just like... I feel like this year I've really either been stuck on like just like really very New England IPAs, like stuff that's really citrusy and clean and stuff like that, or I've been like running down that like Berliner path. Yeah.
This for me, like through summer, I was hitting hazy IPAs super hard all the time.
Same.
And then, you know, as soon as one or two leaves start falling off the trees in my front yard, I go full stout and don't look back. And so like the darker, the more bitter stout, like as soon as it starts dipping below 70 degrees, I usually don't turn back from that.
I love stouts, but I have such a hard time with them because they're so heavy.
Yeah.
It's like I love them, but I have to be in the right mood for them. And then I can really only drink one or so.
Yeah.
But actually today, the day that we're recording this, Trophy is releasing their special edition pumpkin spice Milky Way stout.
We'll have to go over there.
Wait, yeah, I want to go. And they actually just released a really cool like Berliner Weiss at the beginning of the week called Tart Pop.
It's the one on Maywood?
It's a pastry Weiss with raspberry filling in it. Oh man. One of my friends got it and she did not really like it that much. It was too sweet for her, but she really loves Gozas. She likes the salted sour kind of thing.
Okay.
And I was super into it. So I think she was going to go there today and pick up some of this pumpkin spice Milky Way and then pick me up some more of these Tart Pops. I was like, fuck yeah.
One of my friends in LA described, I'm very into like imperial bourbon barrel stouts, like the heavier the better.
Oh
Like
man,
once it starts
do bourbon barrel aged stuff.
once it starts leaning towards like 12-13%, the happier I am, because I only need like 4 ounces and I'm happy for the night.
You're just lit.
It's like when you're in high school and you drink a Four Loko, but it's like, but my friend called them Rohypnol level stouts.
Oh my God.
That always stuck with me. Yeah.
My God. What was that movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, where he was like, this is full cerebral palsy?
Basically, yeah. Yeah, that's me after like 2 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I guess there you have it. This beer's kind of weird. It's like tea. If you like tea,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just not experienced enough with gozas. Like, I'm worried somebody's going to listen to this and be like, you're just a goza noob. You goza noob. And I'm just going to feel really bad. Like, I don't know. I just don't know enough about them or how they're supposed to taste or what it's supposed to be like to know if it's right or if it's good. Like, it could be good. I just don't know if it's good.
That's impersonator syndrome. Don't feel that. Like, just let it go. Like, But yeah, I mean, the weirdness of it though would make me want to try other stuff from their brewery.
That's what got me into the Berliner thing.
Yeah, like, I would go there, like, and see what they have.
Yeah, like at the very beginning of this year, like, this year's the first year that I've been into Berliners at all.
Yeah.
And at the very beginning of this year, I went by this spot in North Raleigh. It's called, I don't remember what it's called right now. It honestly doesn't matter. They had this beer from Untitled Art, which if you've ever drank anything from Untitled Art is really cool. So Untitled Art does no repeating beers, period. It's only limited runs. And that's it. So anything that you get from them, you have to get it then. It's never coming back. They never remake it or anything.
Yeah.
And they put out this one Berliner that was a rocket pop Berliner.
I saw that.
It was like a Berliner.
I saw that at pharmacy.
It had blueberry juice, cherry juice, and lemon juice in it.
Cool.
And it legit was like translucent blue. It looked like blue drink.
Wow.
And it tasted like a rocket pop. Like,
do you remember what percentage? Was it very light? Do you remember percentage?
Yeah, it was like 4% or something.
Okay.
Like, it was pretty light. It was like 4.2.
Cool.
And I wanted to go back and get it, and I drug my feet on it, and I didn't, and then I fucked up because it's gone. Yeah, it's there is no more anywhere.
Wow. Yeah. I've heard they put out some sort of weird s'mores stout, something I had a while ago that was incredible. And then again, I never saw it again. Like, there was one can at pharmacy, I had it, and that was it. It was just gone,
Yeah, I feel like you would really like, there's like this peanut butter chocolate stout that's really good. It's like, I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's one of the ones that I like. And I guess since we're talking about stouts, like, I don't know if you do this, but so to me, stouts are a little bit too heavy. I always have a hard time with them, especially the heavier they get. But what I do like to do is, even though I don't like porters, I do like to mix porters and stouts together, like 50-50.
Oh, okay.
And they make like a whole other drink. So like that stout that I was talking about, the pumpkin spice Milky Way, I don't like the normal pumpkin. It's not pumpkin spice. I don't like the normal Milky Way stout really at all. Like, it's just not really my thing. And Trophy makes another beer called, I don't remember what it's called, but it's a horchata porter.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't really like it by itself either.
You can't drink a lot of it though.
But if you mix those two together, it makes a whole other beer, and it's fucking amazing.
Okay.
It's the same thing with Big Boss. So I don't like Bad Penny, which is their brown ale.
Right.
And I don't like Harvest Time, which is their pumpkin ale. But if you mix Bad Penny and Harvest Time together, it makes this like pumpkin brown ale, and it's great.
That sounds amazing. I would drink that.
It's really great. Like, I'm very into it, but I don't like the beers. But it's just weird. There's these beers, I'm like, I hate them by them. I don't mean I don't hate them, but I don't like them by themselves. But when you mix them with something, boom, it's great.
Yeah, like that used to be a normal thing people did in England and stuff. You get black and tans, and then they had all these variations. I remember when I went to Ireland, there was like 50 different variations of black and tans. They had like the snake bites and the different stuff, and like it was all, when you get down to it, it was just basically like Guinness and Heineken. It was just like different mixes, but they were amazing. Like, they're mixing stuff up, and it was great. Not that I'm saying they're like the purveyors of like beer mixing culture or something, but it's like, it was cool that you could go over there and get all these different things. You don't really see that when you're just going to like breweries around, because North Carolina is very brewery heavy. You're gonna go get the beers that they're making, and that's what you have. So it's interesting though.
Yeah, it's interesting when you mix beers. We're kind of getting off topic a little bit
Way off
for
topic.
a very long time, but
Yeah.
I don't know last beer comment we're gonna make before we get into the episode. But
Yeah.
have you guys ever had? It's like, again, my brain doesn't work, but it's like you take PBR and you like mix it with pomegranate juice or something.
No.
Yeah, it's like a thing.
Okay.
It's horrible. Like it's really, really terrible, but it's a thing. People love it.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who's a music writer. He came home from, he went to Brazil for a while and he came back and we were at a house party and he came in and he was just like, he's like, hey, this is what everybody's drinking down there. And he mixed red wine with Coca-Cola.
Oh, barf.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm good. Like, I'm not even going to try that.
Yeah, that just really sounds bad.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that's it for our beer section. Sorry, we kind of just like ran along forever, but whatever. Chatty Cathy's over here. But yeah, so Jake,
Yeah.
what are we talking about today?
So, so this week we're diving into, after all the beer talk, we're diving into a bit of a heavy topic, basically social media and mental health and how social media companies have kind of taken our attention as their product and looked at it. And we're going to run through how we went from, Prodigy and Usenet to now.
Netscape.
Yeah.
And MindSpring.
Exactly. And how now we're at TikTok. And I'm sure there's probably one after TikTok now that I'm too old to know about.
Yeah. As soon as we got rid of, we haven't even got rid of it. Russian botware.
Yeah.
And now there's probably some new one I don't even know about.
There has to be. I'm sure
there's always a new one. So, okay. So as we were doing the research for this episode, it got so broad because this is one of those ones where every single thing that we could talk about has like 19 other things that we could talk about associated with it. So I feel like we have so many, way too much notes. I'm not even really sure where we start. Like, where do we start?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess let's start at the beginning. So taking things back to kind of how social media started and using as how these platforms began. When you look back at the origin story of social media, you go back to something like Prodigy and Usenet. And
I don't even know what that is.
Prodigy?
Yeah, like, am I too young? I started on MySpace.
You may be a little too. Okay, yeah. So you're definitely
so like that was my first one.
So what am I, 10 years older than you? Something like that?
Something.
Yeah.
Something.
So it's I had Prodigy. I remember my family, we moved to Florida in 1984 or something along those lines.
Okay.
And my grandparents got a computer. It was probably like a 8086 or something because I remember you had to boot it with like floppy disks.
Oh my God. Yeah. Our first computer was not that old. It was like a Dell.
Okay. Yeah, no, Dell didn't exist.
Okay.
So this was, you literally took the phone and put it on top of the computer and it read the squealings of the modem.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it was one of those things. And Prodigy was this like walled garden that you entered into where there was all these forums and they had these very basic like text games. And there were people you could talk to, but it was pretty limited. But like you could already see like how people communicating in this thing was developing and working.
Okay.
And then, stuff like that kind of like happened for years. It went on for about a decade where it was like that turned into BBSs where, we had people logging in and playing StarCon and like all these crazy games and all of them are text-based and we were in there doing hex editor and fixing these things. And it's just silly stuff. And then like it really, when that really, really started was like AOL is where people started actually being able to interact on like a level that you could start calling social media.
Okay.
So
yeah, like AIM.
Yeah, exactly. Instant Messenger, which was like 1998, so Instant Messenger starts, everybody's got their handles and they're talking to people. And, that's when it really starts to develop and when people are able to communicate with each other without anything in the way. This was a text message based, not text message like on your phone, but it was text based.
Right. It was like Oregon Trail.
Exactly.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like text.
Like most people would know what that is, I think. That's pretty popular.
Yeah, I mean, you can get Oregon Trail shirts at Target now.
Yeah.
It's I died of dysentery or whatever.
Yeah.
And so AOL Instant Messenger was I was in college when that was like a big thing in 1999.
Okay. I was in like middle school.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, that was how everyone in my college communicated you leave your instant messenger up, you hooked it to your Winamp, and that would show what songs you were listening to. And, it was all
Oh my
that
gosh.
stuff.
I loved Winamp.
It was the best.
Reskin. That was the first program that let you reskin.
Yep.
That I knew of.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
And you could make the playlist because I would make new sleep playlists every night.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was out of control. And so, I mean, that really took off, and that was where people started realizing that they had to put on a face to the world.
Okay.
So, you had your away message, which nowadays that's not a thing, but like you had your away message where you would say something was happening and people would read it and judge you, and you would think about that, and it was the first time people really realized they had to like think about their lives in that manner. And so from there, I mean, we basically moved straight into MySpace, and when I was doing MySpace, I was a music writer in South Florida. And so I was using it to look at bands and listen to music and find these people to interview and all that stuff. And then I had my own bands that I was putting up my own songs. And so the thought process of like what you had to do to put on a public face, that was where that really, really began, and you're looking at it as a way to show your brand to the rest of the world. And that's where a lot of that anxiety starts.
Okay. Yeah. Because I can remember, when I signed up for MySpace, the whole thing with that is no matter what, you always have one friend.
Yeah.
And
Tom.
and it was Tom. And it was just, I mean,
my boy.
Was that really the guy? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you started out MySpace with one friend. And then as MySpace progressed, it became like more and more important for you to keep up with what all the other people were doing, like using HTML to like reprogram the way that their MySpace looked. And you could like make the whole background pink and all your text have like twinkly shit on it. And, you could add modules to it to like have your top friends and have it play a song. When people come to your MySpace, it plays a song and like you can't stop it. Like if you're looking at their page, it's playing the song and like all of this stuff. And it's like you would look around and, later on, if you were starting on MySpace and there's all these people who had already done this stuff and all your friends have like these custom UIs and stuff on their MySpaces, and then you have the blank one, you know what I mean? Or any of the ones that you could choose from.
Yeah.
You were automatically just like, oh shit, like I don't know how to HTML. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And you had to like pay some e-girl like $200 to like program you a UI. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then the whole top friend thing, what was it? 8? You had your top 8, top 10, or whatever it was.
Yeah. It was like top 6 or top 8.
Sure. And I mean, like, the anxiety and stress that went into that, because that was a whole, I was well out of, I was out of college at that point, but I can imagine going back to like, high school, your top 8 has to be your friend clique. You can see how that directly relates to something like Mean Girls,
and it was a thing. Like,
it has to be.
If you were in someone's top 8 and they were in your top 8, y'all were like tight. And the way, like, there wasn't any unfriending really. Like, you didn't, unfriending someone on MySpace was like stabbing them in the back. but within that, there was this like, if you removed them from your top friends, that was like punching them.
It was over. Like, end of the world.
Like it was like, I'm mad at you, but I'm not going to unfriend you because I still want you to see my page. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it wasn't like Facebook where you could do a relationship, but there was definitely like that first slot. And I'm assuming if you had a girlfriend at the time, she had to be in slot number 1.
Yeah, I mean,
my MySpace at the time was, like I said before, I was a music writer, and so I used it to look for bands and stuff. So I made 8 different accounts I had a hairless cat at the time, and I made 8 different accounts for my hairless cat, and that was my top 8. And,
oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, because bands were pressuring me. Literally, bands were pressuring me.
Will you make me your top 8?
Yeah. And this is in South Florida. So like, there's all these crazy metal bands, and they would show up when I'm at like these weird venues, and they're like telling me I got to put them in their top 8 and all this stuff. And like,
no, dude, my hairless cat's 8 accounts.
Yeah. I'm like, sorry, this is all booked up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And well, for a long time, people thought I actually had 8 hairless cats because they were different photos.
That would be even better.
Yeah, I wish I did. Well,
That's the dream.
That probably would have been a mess. But
so the other thing about MySpace that was really different in the evolution of social media is that MySpace was essentially text-based only, if I remember. There wasn't really any posting pictures. There was no linking. You couldn't share
There were some photos. It was limited. Yeah.
Yeah. But you couldn't like, there was no liking. There was no commenting. There was no re-commenting.
Yeah.
You would just say stuff to other people on their wall, and that was it.
Yeah.
There was no IM built in. There was nothing. Like, it was extremely basic.
Yeah.
But it seemed very complicated.
It did at the time. Yeah. It was. Yeah. And a lot of that was wrapped up in like the whole psyche of like, what is this? Like trying to figure this out, you know? So when you're looking at like this whole new platform, you know, and we'll talk about this in a bit, but like, you know, we still have very primitive brains, you know, and we're looking at like something entirely new. Like our brains don't know how to approach that.
Right.
And but yeah, I mean, but so, you know, we'll talk about that. But MySpace, moving on from there, I mean, immediately, like, you know, MySpace launched in 2003, but Facebook launched in 2004, like right on its tail.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but like,
well, okay, that makes sense to me because I wasn't in on the first however many number of years Facebook was up.
Right. So for the first, 4 or 5 years, it was college only. You had to have a college email address to even get
because I think it was 2000 and wait, what'd you say?
2004 is when it launched. 8 is when it like really started people grabbing onto it.
Okay, so I was 2006 when it went live to high school.
Okay.
Because I knew, I was a senior when I created my Facebook account, and the only reason I was able to get one is because I had a .edu email address.
Ah, okay, yeah. So I was the editor of my my college, in my college newsroom, and somebody had come up to me,
fancy pants,
Mr. Fancy Pants, and somebody came up to me and they had made me an account.
What?
Yeah, and they were like, here, and they just like gave me a Post-it with my login on.
Are you still using the same one?
That's
amazing.
That is the same one. I don't think.
So you didn't even sign yourself up for Facebook?
No, and it's I don't think I ever changed. There's no way I ever changed it. I mean, I never did anything, but like now I can't. You know, I've been wanting to delete my Facebook forever, and my wife gets upset because I talk about it all the time and I never do it.
Yeah,
but I have photos going back, 12 years. That I don't have anywhere else, and it's really difficult to get those downloaded and all that stuff. But
I want to say there's actually a way. So I've had the same thing. I've wanted to get rid of my Facebook forever. I hate Facebook. I think it's horrible. Yeah. Like, I hate being on it. I hate using it. I hate the stress of seeing that little number bubble on my phone. Like, I hate it. I hate everything about Facebook. I hate the sharing. I hate the like button.
Yeah.
I hate having all these friends that I have to manage, and you get signed up for stuff you can never unsign up for. And now it's linked into like, not into PayPal, but like logins for stuff where like if I'm on my phone and I'm lazy, I'll be like log in through Facebook, and I have like 90 things linked to that. So it's like, if I get rid of it, I'm like fucked on all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to get rid of it forever. And I want to say there was a time where I was very serious about it. Like, I was really, really close. And one of the things, again, I didn't want to get rid of was all of my pictures I've had compiling on there. And I want to say, I don't know if it's up there now. I would need to look, but somewhere in the settings, I think there's a way for you to export everything in your Facebook.
I would do that.
Like, it drops all of the pictures and everything into like a zip file.
Yeah. So my excuse for a long time was I use it for work because, like, I work in marketing and I do some marketing stuff.
Yeah, mine was like I use it for bands.
Yeah, and so I had like, I ran a lot of Facebook ads through work stuff, and so I was using my personal account for that, for the freelance stuff I did. And then one day I was just like, forget it, and I just started a new account and moved all my work stuff over to that. And then for some reason I still didn't delete my other one because
now you have 2 accounts.
Now I have 2 Facebooks.
Double the stress.
Horrible. Yeah, exactly.
Gosh, that sounds terrible.
So one of them I never look at, but yeah, still. And that's the interesting part is like, nowadays, it's this fully grown up thing, but like as we were leaning into it and just figuring it out, it was really around 2009 when the like button came out, and that's the little thumbs up. They jumped into it.
Yeah.
And that was like the real, we talked about like the beginning of like feeling the stress and like being part of it and all that stuff. But like The
I think
like
this is how they got you like involved in it, like
exactly.
emotionally invested.
Exactly. And so that is where the beginning of it like really, really started, because the part of your brain that is like reward versus effort is rewarded in that sense.
Yeah,
People
or
come
where
in.
you're looking for approval.
Exactly.
And that, yeah, the like button and its first advent was purely approval.
Right. And man, I still see this today. Like one of my coworkers posted something on Instagram where they were talking about the effort you put into something and how many Instagram likes you return out of it. And it was just this moment where I stared at this thing and I thought, wow, there's this guy who's in his late 40s who's really focused on getting Instagram likes for a picture.
Yeah.
And it was kind of baffling to me because I was surprised that people are still doing that. And then I realized that there's still a lot of people that are like out there like grinding on hashtags all day long and like really putting the effort into it. And like,
Yeah, I mean, there's entire applications you can download for your phone where you can put in like
oh yeah,
topics that you want. Like, so like I used to own a company that manufactured e-liquid like nicotine for vaping.
yeah,
And so I was in doing that, I had to be obsessed with hashtags because that's how I got engagement.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I had multiple applications on my phone where I would put in a handful of topics into it and then it would export to me. It would go across the internet, look at all the hashtags across all of the internet and
Yeah,
figure out which ones apply to that topic and which ones are getting the most engagement. And then it would report back to me a list of all of those hashtags. And then I would take that list out of like 6 or 7 different hashtag algorithm generator dealies and I would
wow,
delete all the ones that were common with them and then look up each hashtag individually to figure out how much engagement it's getting currently
yeah,
and then only take the top 20 or something like that because Instagram limits you to like 20 hashtags.
right,
And then I would have to remove one so that I could add like my company hashtag. And
wow,
so then, and I was doing that constantly as I was recycling. And it was crazy because before I started doing that, my engagement was very limited. But after I started doing that, my engagement like exploded.
yeah. I mean, it's a game. It's a game, and those are the rules that you have to play by.
Yeah.
And it's when I was in Los Angeles, I was doing a lot of like film photography. I still
Mhm.
do once in a while, but like so I was involved in like a couple of groups that were doing film photography, and we would go and they would have all these events where people would like dress up and you would go under this like random bridge and like people would take photos and all this stuff. And I noticed when I went to like post or I would look for what people were posting that there were just people who just like taking photos, and they were like grinding hard on hashtags. They were like they were writing them, like trying to build their personal brand on this, but this wasn't their job. This was just like their hobby.
Yeah.
And I think there's a definite tie-in for how lately the world has, if you have a hobby, you have to be the best at it. Like if
Yes.
you're crocheting, you have to be the best crocheter in the Tri-City area that you live in.
Right. It's like the first time you saw that picture of the crocheted beard beanie
Yes, that
where it
thing.
was all
Yeah.
connected and it
Yeah.
exploded across the internet and that
Yep.
person went viral. And then all of a sudden, like Wish had all of these
Oh, yeah,
crocheted
yeah.
beard
Yeah.
beanies. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and so there wasn't the way the social media grew up, you weren't able to just enjoy your hobbies anymore. So like
Right.
I remember when I was younger before all this stuff, like I would sit around and listen to records, I'd go out and take photos, do this stuff. But now when you interact with a lot of people that do that same stuff, like they're, and this makes me sound like a grumpy old man, which maybe I am, but they're like their hobby, they have to be the best at it. They have to be focused on it. It has to be 100%. They have to be growing in it, and it has to be like a side hustle for them.
Yeah.
Like your hobby has to be a side hustle, and you can't just enjoy it. You know?
Yeah. I definitely feel that like has infiltrated like video games and stuff like that a
Oh,
lot
absolutely.
because like if I think about back in the day when I was playing stuff like Final Fantasy or Metal Gear Solid or Spyro or whatever. The goal was just to have fun and get to the end of the game.
Yeah.
And the game was hard, so sometimes you got frustrated or whatever, but there was no real like competition to it. And even when you did get into like the competition level type games, like when Call of Duty 4, the first Modern Warfare came out, or even the second one, I think even into the third one, there really wasn't that much that they were doing to make it feel like you had to be the absolute best possible person at the game before they started putting statistics
Right.
on top of it. And then now with the way social media is and Reddit and YouTube and now Facebook has that like former Mixer partners thing and the people coming off of Twitch and all that kind of stuff where it's like you're just like having all of this data about how awesome all of these people are out there at this thing that you enjoy and it's just in your face all the time. And even with me, like I play Apex Legends a lot and like I'm
Sure.
not amazing at it, but I'm also not terrible at it. But at the same time, there's like this thing in the back of my head that's like watching these videos on Reddit and watching the pro streamers and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'll never be that good, but I want to be that good. You know what I mean? And so it makes me like think about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it comes down to like, both of us drive kind of like unique vehicles. And if you just go on Instagram, like the hashtags for the cars we drive are endless. Like, and people make it their life,
Yeah, like there's entire groups out there, hundreds of thousands of people for Jeep shit.
Yeah. And same. I mean, like, I just bought a Miata and like it's endless. It's literally endless. Like I didn't realize like how many people were on Instagram like going crazy over Miatas. And I'm like, I just want to drive around with the top down and like have some fun.
I know. It's like I just want to be out on the beach and now I get pressure, people waving at me. And if I don't wave, they like give me the finger.
Right. Yeah. Apparently Miatas, you have to flick your lights. I didn't know that. Like I just
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's like a thing you have to do.
I don't know. When I had my Jetta, we would always just pull up next to each other and talk to each other.
Yeah. Germans. And it's crazy because like so as these things developed, like from Prodigy straight through to like MySpace and Facebook, when basically we got like locked into our hobbies and locked into our different stuff, they realized there's money to be made. There's and it all comes down to there's money to be made, and what they're literally selling is the attention. It's our attention is the product. They want us to be looking. That's why YouTube's algorithm is based on watch time versus anything else. They don't care how many. I mean, they do care, but it's the biggest thing in the world isn't how many likes or dislikes, what your ratio is on YouTube. It's not views, it's watch time. How many hours are people looking at your videos? And
and I know the way that YouTube has sort of a semi-unique way that its algorithm works. It works kind of similarly to the way that Facebook's like forever scrolling video thing works, where they want to use the algorithm to figure out how much time you're spending on videos and what kind of videos you're watching so that it can strategically place the next video to keep you watching forever. So it's like the next video has a statistical likelihood to make you want to watch it. And then based on that video and how long you watch it, the next video, and it will just keep placing videos one after another dependent upon like if you skip a video, every video after that will change to something different.
Yeah.
And and Facebook's is a similar way. And so like there's people who always say, like when you go on YouTube, if you want to try and decrease the way that YouTube is like manipulating your data, never ever watch or not watch it, but don't click on the recommended video. If that video seems interesting to you, instead of clicking on the recommended video button while that video is in the recommended slot, remember the name of the video, go out of it, search for the video, and then watch it. And then it won't like track it correctly or something.
Yeah, and we should do a whole thing on this. There's endless amounts of data and research into the YouTube algorithm and how it radicalizes people and how it does really crazy stuff.
Yeah, like Facebook's is way worse.
Yeah. Facebook kind of just drags people in kicking and screaming into that stuff. And you get served weird stuff. A couple of days ago, I followed two really high level like QAnon people on Twitter. Just to see, like, I wanted to see
to see what would happen.
Yeah. And within 24 hours, a good 50% of my feed was their retweets, who they were looking at. And my Twitter feed went from all car stuff and different things to like just QAnon time 24/7.
Right.
And this comes on the heels of when they were banning all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's still right in there.
Yeah, I had a similar thing happen recently where somebody sent me a link to basically, it's like a flat top grill top that sits on top of a gas oven, like a gas range, and it works like, like a flat iron. And he was just like, "Oh man, this thing is so cool. I want to get one for my house. Like, what do you think?" And I clicked on the link and I looked at it for like 2 minutes. I was like, "Yeah, that's it. It seems badass. Like, I kind of want one."
Yeah.
And I closed it. And then over the next week, every single advertisement I got was for this company. And it's crazy. Like, I feel like there's like two different paths we can run down now. But as far as the
Yeah.
attention thing, there's actually a word for that. And it's called attention extraction economics.
Yeah.
And it's this theory essentially that what they want you to do is, or what the platform is and the algorithms are really designed to do, is to get you to pay attention to them. They want as much time of your eyes staring at their platform and using their platform as possible.
Yeah.
And they use all kind of nefarious tactics to make it happen.
Yeah. And that stuff, I mean, that started with some basic kind of like psychological tricks that are pretty old, and so, going back to somebody like BF Skinner, who did this experiment with pigeons. Basically, this guy got a bunch of pigeons in a room and set up their feeding schedule so that when they wanted to eat something, they'd push a button. And when they pushed the button, they would either get a little bit of food, a lot of food, or a medium amount of food. And what he did was he set up this.
It was random, right?
Yeah, it was completely random.
Okay.
So they would get this completely randomized food amount. And then once they realized that it was a random amount of food, they would just start pushing the button wildly because they didn't know how much they were going to get. So they would just try to store as much as possible.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so that's how essentially what they figured out how the human brain works in casinos when you go to slot machines.
Okay.
So when you go to a slot machine, you pull the arm, spins. You don't know what you're going to get. You can win a penny, you can win nothing, you can win $50.
Right.
And so when you don't know what you're going to get, you pull based on the same weird biological function that they had derived from these like pigeon experiments, that they figured out that you wanted to have as much as possible.
Right. It's like that idea that like the next one's going to be the one that wins.
Exactly.
And then when it doesn't, it's like the next one's going to be the one that wins. The next one's going to
Exactly.
win. The next one's going to win. You just keep pulling.
Exactly. And so when you are at the top of your Twitter feed, nowadays, it used to be chronological. You would see,
I loved it when it was chronological.
It was the best. You would see what the last person wrote and you would pull down and you'd be like, oh, I guess nobody else tweeted anything. And you'd throw your phone back in your pocket and you'd walk around and go about the rest of your day.
Right.
Now you scroll it down and all of a sudden you've got something from Time Magazine. You've got something from Joe Biden. You've got something from
you get to
else.
the end and it starts giving you another, like if I'm thinking about Instagram, another endless feed of stuff that you don't follow that they think you might be interested in. So now to get back to your feed, you actually have to click like 2 buttons.
Yeah.
To get back to your feed and out of the recommended feed. And the other thing about it, like with Instagram, so they used to have a chronological order set up as well. I never really got into Twitter, but I've always been really into Instagram.
Yeah.
And at some point they swapped from the chronological order setup to the algorithmic setup.
Right.
And so now Instagram doesn't show you anything in chronological order. It shows it to you in the order in which it thinks you're going to be interested in the post.
Yep.
And what it can do with that is actually like remove posts from your feed and then feed them to you later at a time where not as much content's coming through.
Right.
So like, I'm sure all of us have had this situation where like you're flipping through and like you kind of get to the end and you're like, no more, there's no more posts to see. And then you give it that like one last flick and then all of a sudden like 2 or 3 or 5 more posts show up, but they're from like 4 days ago.
Yep.
And you're like, what?
Yeah,
like,
where did these come from?
Where did these come from? Like, why didn't I see this over the past 4 days?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's there and you're like, oh, well, I mean, great. And like Facebook does a similar thing. And I think so does Twitter. It's like, oh, well, it would have been great if I'd known about this 4 days ago when it happened, especially with like businesses being on there and stuff. You would like, like, I think Instagram just knows I love trophies, so it's always showing me the trophy post.
Yeah.
But it's like if a beer launch had happened like last minute spur of the moment, and it happened 4 days ago, and then all of a sudden posts come through, and I'm like, well, it could have been known that 4 days ago. And
the same thing with stories; they mix them all up. You don't know what you're gonna get. Yeah. I think when we first started talking about the stuff around this episode, the massive amount of information around this episode, one of the things that we first started talking about was that movie, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
And one of the scenes in that movie that really cracked me up was when him and his friend were sitting on like they were in like a school cafeteria or something. The fictional characters in the movie.
Yeah, it was him and his friend. They were like sitting in two chairs. Is this the scene where he's going to go talk to the girl and he doesn't, and the guys like feed him a comment from what's her name?
They start blowing him up with with like the algorithm
because it knew they were nearby each other.
Yeah, and
which that is real. That happens
exactly. And the funny part of it was like they were feeding him that stuff from the person who was nearby, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Wait, we're losing him. Hit him with something else." And then they hit him with like a something from a couple days ago, and then they hit him with something else, and then they hit an ad. They were like, "Oh, throw out the new sneakers or whatever the kid was into."
Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh, I think we've got a 1% chance of getting a click on this ad," and they tossed it out there. And it's, in the movie they made it seem kind of nefarious, like there's these people,
someone back there doing
it. Like there's these three nerds in a box trying to figure it out, but it's not. It's just AI. Like it's in there, And it's not the AI. It's not Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back from the future, but it's like
It's not the Terminator feeding you Facebook ads.
Right. It's definitely like a learning algorithm that can figure it out. There's nothing. It's not even a complicated thing these days.
Yeah, and like the algorithm itself really isn't nefarious, and I know they kind of touched on that a little bit in that particular documentary, which a lot. If you guys have watched that documentary, it's really engaging, and I thought it got a lot of good information about it. A bunch of people came out and were really mad about it because whatever techie social justice warriors didn't get pulled in as much as they wanted to, and they got mad at the producers and whatever. And a number of articles have come out that I've read and some other stuff refuting some of the ways that they went about trying to achieve their goal. And they thought it was a little too biased and it was a little too straight down the direction that they wanted to go and didn't really explore as much as people wanted them to. And now I forgot what my point was. What was I talking about?
Well, it's hard when you're making a movie like that because, well, first of all, they integrated this whole kind of strange fictional narrative into it. But I think that helped introduce a lot of ideas that they normally wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And, they summed up a lot of heavy scientific research. And the part that my wife and I still talk about is when they locked their phones in that plastic box that had the dial, like the timer on it. And the little girl just grabs a hammer,
destroyed it,
breaks it, smashes it open.
And they were all like, and I'm like,
the family blows it off.
I'm like, that's a little flimsy.
Oh, my parents would have beat me into a coma. Like it's wild. But like that scene sums up a lot of the ways that like your brain interacts and needs that. Like, it's an addiction. It's just straight up 100% addiction.
Yeah. Like it went a little over the top with it, but I think it had to kind of deliver the message and make you be like, make you stop and think about it. Like, I don't think that is really that. And maybe I don't know because I'm not 14.
Yeah.
But that just seemed like a fairly unrealistic situation. Like, I can't really imagine that happening. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't really know that it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But I knew what they were trying to communicate by it, and I understood the point.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a almost 3-year-old, and when I put Elmo up on the big TV, she looks at it like he's inventing fire for the first time.
Yeah.
Like she is so in awe of it that like the way her brain works, when she just like shuts down, looks at it. That's why we don't give her a lot of access to TV and obviously.
There's statistics about that. We're going to talk about that next episode.
And it's crazy. Like it's a really bizarre thing. And like the whole thing, the awe aspect is something that's really interesting is because, while social media has come from, we've been looking at Prodigy through what it is today. And even if you go back to like when, the whole joke, computers were the size of rooms, you look at the amount of like growth computers have had, all that stuff. In all of that time, our brains haven't really graduated further along the line as technology has.
Right.
We still have like, I hate to say it, but like primate brains. Like our brains are still hunks of gray goo that are still just trying to keep up and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And 10,000 years ago, if you took a Paleolithic person and you put them in a movie theater and they saw Harrison Ford 40 feet tall in an IMAX theater, they would instantly just start worshiping him.
Right.
And they wouldn't even know how to react to it. They would probably just like, wet themselves and run away. And our brain is still trying to like cope with that. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why we get dopamine hits when Twitter has one more tweet for us.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, to me, that kind of makes sense because if you look at the way technology has progressed since the 1960s, technology has basically, it's grown essentially exponentially since then. Like it's improved on itself 1 trillion times over.
Wow.
Like it's to me, it's like almost an unfathomable amount of
it is
better that we're talking about. Like, right. Cause everybody's talked about, like you said, it's like computers used to be the size of rooms and the processing power that it took for us to get to the moons in the 60s is the same amount of computing power that's in like one of those like $4 Casio, calculators.
It's not even as good as the Texas Instrument, like the TI-86. It's like not even as good as that one.
No, it wasn't even as good as that. Like it was literally like a rotary counter.
Yeah.
And and so now we like literally have this thing that has the entire world's worth of information and fake information in it, manipulating us. And we're using it to share cat videos and talk shit to each other.
Right.
Like it's just crazy.
Luckily, there's smart people doing smart stuff with it too.
Yeah.
I think it was, I think it was like a skit from like one of Rogan's stand-ups when he was like, if I dropped you off in the woods in the middle of nowhere, how long until I get an email from you? And it's like, it's
until you reach signal again.
Right. Yeah.
Unless so you have Verizon, then you get one right away.
Well, I mean, if you don't I think the point was like, how long until you can invent a way to send an email?
Oh, okay.
So like
I was not following that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to be out there like Gilligan Island coconutting together and trying to get like an email out of it. And it's like, his point was like, are people keeping an eye on smart people? Like, what are the smart people doing? It's like, we got to make sure they're okay, like make sure they're breeding and we're all, because we don't want to stroll into idiocracy,
Yeah, like that's almost like a whole other conversation.
Absolutely.
Where it's like all the dum-dums are out here having kids and all the smart people are waiting till they're like 40 to have one kid.
Right. Yeah.
Or no kids.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation, but
So, yeah. So, I mean, and that kind of feeds into like, how are people using social media today in 2020? So people like you and I, and like, and I'm an old guy in the business world. And so I'm on LinkedIn once in a while. And like my entire LinkedIn feed is people talking about how they can get off social media.
I never go on LinkedIn.
You probably shouldn't. It's like Facebook that hasn't matured yet. And actually that's a horrible way to describe it, but
it's a terrible platform to me.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't enjoy being on it.
I've gotten almost every job I've ever had off LinkedIn though.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It works. Wow. Like it works. But yeah, but anyways, side note though, is the people on there are constantly looking for ways to get offline. And you see there's people who spend thousands of dollars to go to technology detox clinics. And, they go off to the woods and they pay some guy, $3,000 for a weekend to like make sure he doesn't use his phone.
I literally just did that last weekend and it was free.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anybody can do it. Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I actually had a really interesting thing that I thought about while I was doing that. So, my wife and I and her family, we went up to the mountains for like a weekend. And one of the things I love to do while I'm in the mountains is like find a really great spot, like right on the side of like a cliff hangover and hang my Eno up.
Nice.
And then just like hop in it and like fall asleep.
That's awesome.
And so I couldn't find a really good one like right on a cliff, but I found one kind of near one, so where I could like kind of still see the view, but not really, and I could see trees above me and all this stuff. But being up on the top of this mountain, I still had phone service.
Yeah.
And so like my phone was like dinging as I'm trying to lay there, and I'm like, I should check my email. And I was like, oh, I should check my Facebook. And I was like, now I should make an Instagram post about me laying in this hammock.
And I saw your Instagram post of being in there. Yeah, I saw that.
I know. I'm like,
you ruined it.
I did. And then I'm like, oh, I should text my buddy and tell him how nice it is up here right now. And then at some point I just kind of realized, I was like, what am I doing right now? And I actually, for the first time in probably since I've had a phone, turned my phone off for like 36 hours.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
It like powered it down.
Yeah. That's the way to do it.
And it was the best.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like, I knew it was off, and so I just put it in my bag in the cabin. I literally didn't think about it for a day and a half.
Yeah. I really feel like in like 15, 20 years from now, people are going to look back at the way we use social media, like now going back a couple years, at the same way as smoking. They're going to look at the same way as us smoking cigarettes. They're going to think, they're like, wow, you just handed out your every minute of every day you were doing to people.
Yeah.
You know?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope that is a thing, like that people look back at this, like the way that we are allowing this garbage to like ruin our lives. And not really, because a lot of people use this kind of stuff to stay connected with their family and communicate with each other and keep track of stuff.
And that's important.
Like my wife is in all these plant groups, and they communicate like plant tips with each other and trade plants with each other.
Right.
And that's what they do. And like, or like I'm in all these Jeep groups where people are like, I've been having a problem with the electrical system in my Jeep recently. And I like wrote a post and asked for help, and all these people came out and helped me. And like, not to my house, but like, they were like, maybe try this.
You don't
maybe
want
try this. You should look here. And so there is all of this like ways that it's good and helpful, and there's good communities, but it's like within that same community, there's like toxic assholes. You know what I mean? And then all these negative effects that come from it as well. And like, with the election coming up, like people yelling at each other about that, and just I don't know. Like, I can't tell personally if like the stress and anxiety that it causes me is worth the amount of benefit that I get from staying connected to it.
There's got to be a way to limit and like, I don't want to say protect yourself, because that like makes it sound a little weird, but like there's got to be a way to like kind of temper that. I was in a local group for like dads in my neighborhood, and it was by far the most toxic thing I had ever come across on the internet.
Was it Nextdoor?
No, it wasn't on Nextdoor.
Oh
it was just on Facebook.
If you guys have Nextdoor, never join it.
I'm on Nextdoor for my neighborhood.
All of the super toxic Karens go to hate on their neighbors. It's horrible. It's the worst platform.
It's all like, I saw a copperhead and F you for looking at my dog.
Well, I used to live in a downtown neighborhood, and I used to get these posts all the time where it'd be like some like 65-year-old Karen would be like, I saw a dark-skinned gentleman walking through the neighborhood earlier, and I almost called the police. And I'm like, shut up, Karen.
I will find it. I will find it and post it when we put this up. I'll post a screenshot of it with this. I have a screenshot from my Nextdoor when I first moved to North Carolina.
Okay.
And it was a guy saying to be careful because there's somebody going through his neighborhood trying to pet the dogs. And the reason you have to be careful is because he's going to pet your dogs, and then he's going to break into your house, and his dogs are going to be friendly to you or to him because he's already been out there and made a relationship with your dog.
Not my dog.
No, I have 3 dogs, and I don't care if you're their best friend in the world. If you walk into the house, they're going to tear you apart.
Yeah, my dog's the same way. I think Jake has met my dog like 54 times. Yeah. And he still is just like losing his mind every time he comes in.
Yeah, and my dog, I have to put my dogs away when people come over because they'll just jump on people, and they turn into a pack, and they'll just like go after people,
Yeah.
And this guy's like, if you pet this person's golden retriever, you're going to be able to break into their house later.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I mean,
I find that unlikely.
Very, very unlikely. And so it's just, there's so much toxic garbage out there that just eats up your time. And same thing with the dad group I was in. It was guys arguing over like how to properly clean driveways. And like they would get into these 400 piece long threads where they're arguing over whether you bleach it or spray it or whatever. And it was like just anger out there. And I'm sure these dudes are probably just like at their home with no manifest destiny of their own, and they're just angry, And so like they have their own life, or that, they can't do anything. So they're just on the internet screaming at people, whatever. And it's the buildup of that toxic garbage just adds this whole other element to social media that makes people want to like check out.
Yeah. Like I saw, I know some people think that Instagram is probably the most toxic, or what I've heard people say that they think Instagram is the most toxic of the platforms. And I actually tend to really disagree with that. I think Twitter is the most toxic platform, and I think Facebook is second. And I think
I would agree with that.
Instagram's way down the list from that because to me, there's a lot of positive stuff on Instagram and it really is not going to show you or push you towards that much shit that you're not interested in.
Yeah.
So like I follow a number of car pages, I follow a bunch of musicians, I follow a bunch of like guitar manufacturers and stuff like that. But then I also follow a bunch of like um body positivity pages and
Okay.
tattoo artists and art pages and digital artists and all this kind of stuff and it's a
Cool.
lot and a bunch of it is like extremely positive. So I feel like when I'm going through, my Instagram, it's like tattoo, cool car, motorcycle,
Yeah.
body positivity. You know what I mean? And like with it being an image based as opposed to a text
Yeah.
based, and there's no links in it. There's no articles you can post, but in Twitter you can post articles and say shit.
Right.
And on Facebook it's articles and you say shit. Um, it really is just like you can scroll through it really quickly and just get
Yeah.
picture stuff happening. And people have, now figured out that there's a lot of positive engagement when you have a picture with words on it and the
Mhm.
algorithm can't detect the
Right.
picture with words. It can only detect what's in the caption. And so like, I don't know. And with you being able to share between stories and stuff, like I've shared a bunch of like male body positivity stuff and I always have people coming back and be like, this is so great. I'm so glad
Cool.
that you shared this. Like, this is so positive, and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it just seems like a more positive platform to me.
Yeah, I mean yes, and I feel like the way that I've kind of curated my Instagram, it's really gotten to that place too.
Yeah. Like I just don't follow shit that I don't like. And so it
Right.
doesn't push me that way.
And I feel like it's taken me a while to get there.
Yeah. I've
And
had
then
to unfollow a lot.
yeah, and then I put myself in the thought of like, 14-year-old Jake, who was when I was 14 years old, I was like a really overweight kid who didn't have any friends and anything.
Same.
Yeah, and I look back at that and I think if Instagram existed back then, it'd probably be a really big problem.
Yeah. Cause I doubt that there would be any body positivity posting happening.
Sure, or just following my local high school friends and getting bullied
Oh,
and
yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. And
It's
then
different once you're an adult.
right, exactly.
I don't have to follow the cool kids.
Exactly. I don't give a shit about those people.
Yeah,
anymore,
I don't. I literally could not care less.
like
about
those
you.
people are plumbers in the middle of nowhere. I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
not
like,
that there's anything wrong with plumbers.
Yeah, and like I don't follow coworkers.
Right, exactly.
Really, I mean, I might have like one or two that I'm like sort of friends with or whatever.
Put yourself in the mind of like a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Who has an eating disorder, who is in high school and just trying to get
and
along.
all she follows is like fashion stuff and her friends and like Vogue magazine and e-girls and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm
making huge assumptions about young teenage girls right now, but
sure. Yeah. But I feel like it's like a no-brainer. That's probably what's I feel like that's probably what's happening in a lot of cases.
I guess. I don't know.
It's and I hope there's more education and understanding where people can fight that stereotype.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean when you look at that, that's probably the super negative aspect that people are looking at,
Yeah.
People like us, like we're pretty much like in the cusp of our confident adulthoods, whatever that means. And
I don't know. I sometimes don't feel that confident.
I mean, I barely ever do, but like, but at least I have a bank account and I'm making money and I can go do what I want,
Yeah. And I mean, I reassure myself that way too. Cause I'm like, at the end of the day, everything that happens on my phone is just bullshit. And I'm married and
yeah. I'm like
that's
doing my
the
thing.
only person who really I give a shit about.
So. Right. Like that's the only person I have to impress at the end of the day.
And like, I know we'll probably talk about this next episode, but like on that front a little bit, like I've talked to my wife sometimes. It's like, how horrible would it be to be single right now?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like to have to deal with not only social media, but dating apps. And we'll talk about this next episode but trying to deal with like finding a relationship over social media with dating apps and being single in the middle of COVID. Like what a recipe for disaster.
I mean, even pre-COVID, I remember in Los Angeles, one of our friends would like have a breakup or something. And we would suddenly think like, oh God, they're single in Los Angeles. How's that going to work out? And here in Raleigh, it's a whole different story because there's like a different quality of person here. It's a little different world.
Yeah. It's a different thing. I mean, I have been here my whole life and I mean, I met my wife when I was like 23.
Okay.
Or 22. No. later than that, 24. And
Okay.
so from my like 21 to 24 years, I lived downtown.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And Raleigh, I feel like from outsiders' perspective, seems like a big place. Shocker. It's not.
No, no.
It's not, especially when you live downtown and you know all the bartenders and you know all the
Yeah.
downtownies and you're all just like sleeping with each other,
Yeah.
and like it becomes a small spot real fast.
I remember when I first moved to Raleigh, standing on a street corner, turning around and thinking, wait a minute, that place is right there.
Yeah.
And wait, that other place is right there. They're right across the street from each other. And
Yeah.
that happened like every week.
Yeah. Like I always get people who move here are really surprised because there's like your downtown's like 6 blocks.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not big.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's crazy.
Sorry,
And
getting off topic.
it is off topic, but it's fine.
I don't know. If you don't live here, please don't move here because I like Raleigh and I don't want it to get any bigger.
Yeah, no more no more
more people. No, thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, coming off of the going back to putting yourself in the mind of somebody who's 14 years old and on Instagram.
Yeah.
We talk about like what the possible solutions for something like that can be.
I don't even know.
I don't know either.
Like I don't know how to really even fathom that question.
Yeah, and so I spent about 5 years working directly with not Instagram, but social media influencers, mostly YouTubers.
Yeah.
And so my job was I would help YouTubers basically build their platform outside of YouTube. So if they wanted a book deal, I'd help them get a book deal. If they wanted to start a podcast, I'd teach them how to start a podcast.
Okay.
And so like that was my gig essentially. So I was with influencers a lot and like kind of talking to them about like what their day-to-day life was. And I'm not naming names here, but not many of them were happy.
Yeah.
A lot of them were overworked and not seeing kind of the fruits of their labors with that. They were unhappy in general because they felt like their entire lives were exposed to everyone. And then
it's like being on the Truman Show.
Yeah, I mean 100%. And so like the worst part about it, I remember there was a girl I worked with who was a video game influencer and e-girl, and she
cool.
she was nice. She was super cool.
A lot of them are really nice.
Yeah.
They just seem terrible on the internet.
Yeah, and I think she may fall into that, but she was in person. She was one of the most genuine people I ever knew.
Yeah.
And she told me one time that she really hated having her life out there because she always had to think about her emotional reactions before she had them.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me for a lot of years because like, well, first of all, I'm a guy. I'm not allowed to have emotions, whatever. You bury it down into your stomach until it becomes a pit, whatever.
Get out of my face with that. I'm trying to be positive.
Right. So it was really bizarre because she was like, well, if somebody breaks up with me, I can't just go online crying because my fans and my followers don't even know that I'm in a relationship. So if I'm sad, they don't know why.
Yeah.
And so
so she has to be like faking it.
Right. And like,
oh my gosh, that'd be so terrible.
Right. And the specific girl I'm talking about, she was very genuine. She didn't like faking stuff like that. So like she tried being open, but then that would just open up her to like criticism and
like there's like this big backlash to it.
Yeah. So and there was no winning answer. There's no solution where it worked.
Yeah. I do feel like that kind of thing has changed a lot over the last number of years. So
absolutely.
As an example, I saw a very similar situation happen with someone recently, and the effect that came out of it was totally different.
Yeah.
So there's a tattoo artist that I follow. I'm not going to say who it is and where, but she's an extremely attractive girl who tattoos very racy subject matter.
Okay.
And so she basically had this Instagram story that she posted where she was talking all about how she was starting a second Instagram so that she could post more personal stuff, and that it has she started to try to post more of her own personal art, pictures of herself looking kind of racy, you know, on her tattoo Instagram. And she came out and had this whole write-up where she was talking about how it really hurt her feelings that she had all these people out here saying how much they love her tattooing and love her art and can support that, and it's very, very racy.
Yeah.
And then for her to post pictures of herself, um, in this sort of racy way, these same people are coming out like saying horrible things about her, like calling her bad names,
Yeah.
trashing her basically. And she couldn't understand how people could support her art and the things that she creates and then not support her as a
Yeah.
person. And um, I mean, I did. I sent her a little message and I said something very nice to her where I was like, this is basically bullshit. But and she kind of started sharing some of the responses that he got, and it really was this outpouring of being like, these people need to stop
Yeah.
doing what they're doing. And
Yeah.
so I do think that I'm seeing this shift somewhat in like the personal responsibility aspect of social media, where people are more apt to realize that um, people are just going to say bad stuff,
Yeah.
and there's an army of people waiting to be positive and force out the people that are being negative, and um, just really like be supportive and positive to people so that we don't have situations like that happening as much now. And I don't know if that's true or if that's whatever. I don't have any statistics on that. That's just like what
Yeah.
I've seen from looking around the
Yeah.
internet. And like, to build on that a little bit, I think as this gets more popular, and I don't put a lot of weight in what celebrities do or say or anything. Like when I listen to music, as an example, I like the song. I don't care what the artist has to say about politics or whatever, but I do think it is very impactful when artists come out and say something meaningful in the music and
Yeah.
not like in the news
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or whatever, or like come out on their Twitter and blast somebody. Like if you want to say something, say it using your platform, which
Yeah.
is
Use
like
your
in
art.
this, yeah,
Yeah.
which is your art. And so seeing stuff like Ludacris came out this year in 2020 and dropped
Yeah.
that song Silence of the Lambs. And to
Hmm.
me, that's one of the very first like mainstream artists I've seen come out and really attack mental health and attack stuff like social media and politics as like a way that's fueling the mental health issues that are happening right now. And there's another point that I was going to make, and now I forgot what it was. I'll get back to it, and I'm sure. But that song has some lines in it that crush. I mean,
Yeah.
Luda comes out and it's very explicit. Like comes out and just drops some shit.
That's awesome. Yeah. I want to hear that.
It's a good song too.
It's interesting because, like, and you look at, if you go back to like, the analog time,
Yeah,
back in the day, you look at somebody like Neil Young who sings like a song like "Old Man," take a look at my life, I'm a lot like you, and he talks about like the angst of that time frame, and then then now Ludacris has this song,
yeah,
which is like the angst of his time frame. So
yeah.
it's really interesting. So like his art speaks at a different level of all that stuff, and if you even go back, it's kind of interesting. God, what's the name of it? Eminem's album Kamikaze that came out like
Oh yeah, yeah,
2 years ago now, maybe. It was his first big album after that one that flopped a little bit.
yeah,
But it was great. It was amazing. It was one of the first Eminem's albums I've listened to straight through for a while.
yeah. Like I know he's always been one to come out and really like say some shit. And
Yeah,
he was a lot more mainstream than somebody like Immortal Technique, who I always felt like was
yeah,
way more apt to say some super real shit.
absolutely, yeah,
But the more that's happening, I think the better.
yeah. Another guy like Open Mike Eagle
Yeah.
is talking a lot about that stuff nowadays, and it's pretty cool. There
Or
are a lot of
Killer Mike is really into that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people out there like really kind of sharing what that experience is.
Yeah.
And I think that's creating a little bit of a shift. Whereas, for the past 10, 15 years, we were just kind of like putting a happy face on stuff.
Yeah.
You presented your brand, and everybody had their brand, no matter how old they were, no matter what they were doing their brand, from 14-year-olds to 50-year-olds. And there's a crack in that facade, and it's changing. And it's changing because people are out there actually talking about it. And that's making a difference,
Yeah.
And I think one of the big ways people are having those conversations is in long form discussions like podcasts like this.
Yeah.
And then you see people on Twitch who sit out there and they talk about this while they're sitting there playing games on Twitch. And it's really interesting because you're getting beyond just a photo of somebody sucking in their stomach,
Sure. I mean, I think it's becoming more apparent as well, like as we're coming up on over a decade a decade and almost 2 decades of social media.
Yeah.
That people are really starting to look back and go, is there like some bad stuff happening to us by doing this? And people are starting to kind of feel more of that personal responsibility. And we'll talk about this a little bit more next episode in a different kind of light. But, stuff like with us with Instagram, where it's on that platform, it's a lot easier for me to control the content that I'm seeing because it's all based on this just the stuff that I follow. And it's really easy to go back and unfollow people or unfollow pages. All I have to do is flip through my thing and click unfollow 19,000 times.
Right.
But by doing that, I can very easily control the kind of content that I'm seeing. And it's significantly more difficult on platforms like Facebook, where it's just so inundated with groups and games and pages and friends and whatever. It's just very difficult to manage that page. So it's really like barfing at you. But I think, to me, my solution has been that the responsibility is on myself to curate my account.
It has to be. I mean,
and it's such a huge time investment.
Yes, yeah, but the personal responsibility has to be there, because the companies aren't going to hold themselves accountable. Because look back at the movie we both watched, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah,
even like the guys who invented this crap are sitting there wondering, like, are we the bad guys? And they're like,
I don't know. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Right. Like, maybe I ruined the whole world. And they're not doing, and like, there's one dude in that whole show who's like going on tours, yelling at people to put their phone down.
Yeah. It was the guy with like the mohawk cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I watched a couple of his TED Talks. They were kind of cool.
Yeah. He's a smart dude. I'm blanking on his name, but he's a smart dude. But those people are even the ones who were like literally the dudes who invented this stuff are out there now rallying against it. And what they're saying is, they're trying to hold the companies accountable, but you're never going to hold the companies accountable.
Right. Because like at this point, even legislation has been unable to hold the companies accountable.
No, because there's dollars there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And like there's this ethical dilemma going on there too about the data.
Right.
And I think one state, Wyoming or something, I can't remember what state it is, but there's a state that passed a law that says that the residents of that state own their data and the companies like can't do anything with it. And so like that was like one of the more recent like first steps in this like question of data.
Right.
And like giving up your data for free.
Yeah. And even and like, that's one state amongst 50, and I don't see every state picking that up. There's states that.
No, I mean, I think California is working on one.
Yeah.
That's the only other one I'd heard of.
Yeah. So you get a little bit of legislation here and there, and the companies kind of like, it's like back when the tobacco companies were like, we're going to investigate this,
right.
But they do nothing for.
Yeah. Or like Purdue with the whole thing about OxyContin. They just finally settled that.
Right. And how long has that been?
20, 30 years.
Right, exactly.
Of that. So
and hundreds of thousands of people have died. Even more.
They have over $1 trillion in claims against them.
Yeah, that and that family that is just endlessly rich over that stuff. Yeah. It's disgusting. And that's where it comes in, where it has to be personal responsibility. Like people have to be empowered. They have to learn from it. And and there's companies out there that are like trying, like even HBO. HBO got together a bunch of influencers and put them in a room and basically like had psychiatrists lecture them until they realized how dangerous some of this stuff was.
Right.
And then they turned around and talked to their fan base. And even that, I don't think that's going to be a solution. I think the solution has to be empowering each individual to be able to take control of that. And I think another big part of that is going to be making the accessibility on devices easier to navigate. There should be a switch on the side of your phone that shuts down social media, and the rest of your phone works fine. Everything else is fine. Just like click that off.
Yeah.
Or like,
I mean, it's software embedded right now. So like a thing that I did as part of my like personal responsibility thing recently, because I wanted to like, so I have an iPhone 10, so it has screen time statistics built into it with the new iOS or whatever. And one thing that I wanted to try to do was statistically decrease my screen time. And so one of the things that I did to do that was I went through my settings and I turned off all notifications. So
Good.
like
Yeah.
if like it doesn't matter what platform it is, if it's not a phone call, an email, or a text message, my
Yep.
phone doesn't do shit.
Yep.
And my screen time has dropped like dramatically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm still working on the whole like picking it up as habit kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
thing.
That's a real thing.
But like I'll pick it up and when I look at it and it opens, I don't see any little red bubbles and I'm instantly like, oh, there's nothing for me to see. And I
Yeah.
just put it right back down. And so like all of that like intermittent during the day time that I would be checking it or I'm like doing my like, rotation essentially where it's like text message, email,
Yep.
Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, it's like I'm making
The
the
flow.
round. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm making
yeah.
the rounds. And like that's a thing too. It's like we have all these multiple platforms and you
Yeah.
make the rounds. It's like by the time I get back to text messages, I'm like, oh, I need to go check Instagram
Right.
again. Then I Facebook and then Reddit again.
Yep.
And I'm like
Yep.
just doing the rounds. So in turning all of that stuff off, it's crazy that my screen time has like decreased dramatically. And it was crazy to me almost how instant it was because as soon as I changed those settings to turn notifications off and I swiped up on my phone to go back to my home screen, and every single one of those red bubbles was gone.
Yeah.
It was like a weight just like flew off of my
Yeah.
shoulders. And it's like I sat back on my chair and it's like my whole body relaxed. Like it was
Yeah.
such a weird feeling.
It's a great feeling. Yeah. I killed those notification bubbles a long time ago.
Yeah.
I get text messages, emails, phone calls. My phone makes zero noise. Like I don't have any sort of auditory at all. Like I don't have that.
I miss the days where I had an Altel flip phone and I had like 90
songs.
Yeah. And I had like 95 different ringtones on it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Like I had like my text was like the Chewbacca going, and then like when I opened my phone, it would make it would make the lightsaber sound to go when I
nice.
when I flip my phone open.
Yeah,
and then when I closed my phone, it go and and every time somebody called me, it was a different ringtone for every different person. And like I know you can do that now, but like my phone is on silent 99.9% of the time, so it just vibrates.
Yeah.
And I almost forget, and it's like weird to me to turn it on. Like when it makes noises, I'm like, this thing makes noises.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I miss a lot of stuff. And my wife and I were both working from home, and so she has her office. Exactly. Yeah. We all are. Yeah.
Yeah.
She has her office downstairs, and I have my office upstairs. And so she'll text me, and it'll be like 18 minutes before I see it.
Because I have that exact same thing. My wife's so mad. She's like, "Didn't you see that text you?" I'm like, "No, I'm on a desk and my phone's sitting on the desk. Like,
exactly, yeah.
It's not in my pocket. I can't feel it. Even if it is in my pocket and I'm like walking around, I still can't feel it.
Right,
So I never know I'm getting calls.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'll hear my wife's laptop has like an audible email sound, and it's just all day.
Oh man, mine does the same thing
all day long. And that so I can't do auditory because that like drives me insane.
Yeah.
So I have no of the red dots. I don't get any notifications aside from like personal stuff. And I've got like the black and white setting. So like after I think it's 6 p.m., my phone turns black and white. And so
interesting.
You don't get any of that like so your brain like wants to see color, even though I'm colorblind as hell. My brain wants to see color.
Okay.
So flipping through Instagram becomes more boring.
Interesting.
So it's that one really like took down the amount of time I was staring at
That's
stuff.
interesting. I don't know if I could deal with that because one of the things I do right before I go to sleep is I read comics.
Oh, okay.
And so I'll turn the yellow nighttime filter on and then I'll read comics to like fall asleep.
I have a Kindle, so I just like read like straight up books on the Kindle, and I like.
Oh, you actually read books?
Yeah, and I leave my phone like away. And I just look at the Kindle.
Well, one thing that I have done is I've started keeping books next to my bed, like physical books.
Yeah.
So I've been reading my way through the One Punch Man mangas.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I have like the next 12 of them.
Nice.
Stacked on my desk.
That'll keep you
ready
busy.
to like read. And I'm so sorry if you're in Wake County and you want to read One Punch Man because I have them all from the library. Sorry. And they're all in my desk waiting for me to read them. But like I can lay down and read an entire book of one of the One Punch Man mangas in like an hour, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't read very fast. My eyes don't work right when it comes to reading on paper. So But so it takes me a long time to read them, but it gets me really sleepy. And so I can fall asleep. And then every one of them that I read, I take it back to the library or whatever. So that's been helpful as well.
It's good. It's good to detach like that. I mean, and this is another stupid hipster thing, but when I got
I
into
love stupid hipster things.
When I got into like film photography, like film photography was like a thing for me to like disconnect.
Like physical film?
Yeah, like physical film.
Was it 35?
Yeah, 35 millimeters.
Yeah,
so like
35 millimeters something.
Yeah, so like my wife's an amazing digital photographer. She's
really great.
Yeah,
that's how we met. Don't try to get her to take your picture though. That is how we met. Yeah.
And yeah, so I just shoot film, and so like I know when she shoots digital stuff, she sits down at her laptop, she edits things, and it's like this whole thing. And for me, seeing that like makes me instantly not want to take pictures. So like I go out. Yeah, I go out with my camera and I take photos, and then I like send it off to be developed because I don't have like a light-free room,
dark room.
Yeah, I don't have a dark room, and so I get it back, and like there's no scanning. I get prints and like I take care of it and stuff.
You should buy a negative scanner.
I do. I have a negative scanner, but I try not to use it too often because I end up like putting.
I have this technology, but fuck it.
Yeah, well, I end up like if I scan stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna put this on Instagram, and then like, hashtag I took a picture of my dog, and then I'm like, what am I doing?
35mm life.
Yeah, exactly. Like I shoot film, stay broke, shoot film, and
stay broke. That's funny.
Yeah, so that drives me crazy. So like I try to like stay away from that stuff. So it's like, yeah, I mean for me, like those little analog things I can work into my life like really help because like my job is like.
Being on the computer.
Mine
is
like,
too.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, my job is like, I help run an agency full of like creators who do YouTube videos. And so like, it's all day long. I'm talking to these guys online. I'm looking at the videos. I'm just there 24/7. And so I'm also on social media all day long for work. So it's just like, that's where I live.
Yeah.
And so
mine's a little bit the opposite. I stare at like 90 million line spreadsheets all day. So like if you need an Excel boss, I am your dude. But no, I like if I never looked at another spreadsheet again, that I would be great. But like, yeah, it's the same thing with me. I just stare at the computer all day.
Yeah.
So like those little analog things I find so much joy in. It's crazy.
It helps. It
like
really does.
Last year before we moved into our new house, I had started getting back into building Gunpla models, the plastic Gundam models.
Oh yeah.
And
those are cool.
Like I love just like sitting down and clipping them out of the plastic frames and then like sanding all the little pieces off of the side of them. And then I put them together. And then once they're together, like I set them up with their little, beam sabers and beam rifles and crap, and then make them look like they're fighting each other. And like, I don't know, like it seems really stupid. Like that's a thing I did in high school. I built Gunpla models in high school. Like that's the last time I did it. But it's not like I found this community around it who uses social media to talk to each other. They hang out in person in model shops and like build Gundam models together and give each other tips on how to put them together and like paint them and all this stuff. And like, I haven't done any of that, but like, I just really enjoyed the manualness, the analogness of sitting down, like clicking pieces of plastic.
Well, and you
together.
just like sniffing the paint too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then there's these other ones I found. They're these little tiny metal models where it's like these stamped pieces of like really, really thin metal.
Cool.
And you cut all the little metal pieces out, and then they have these little tabs on them, and you're just sticking the tabs through like a tab on another piece, and you just twist it, and that's what holds it in.
Cool.
And it ends up, and so it's like I have like I can't remember what all I have. It's like I have a Millennium Falcon and a Star Destroyer and like all this really cool Star Wars stuff that I have an AT-AT Walker.
Yeah.
And like all this stuff. And they're really, really hard. And they take a long time. Like the Gunpla models don't take nearly as long as these little tiny metal models are. And they're like 3 or 4 inch tall models. Like
wow.
But they're so difficult to put together. It takes so much concentration. Like it takes me 2 or 3 sittings. Like it's probably
do you have like
6 or 7 hours to do one of these things.
Do you have like a big magnifying glass thing that you put between you and that?
No, I just hunch over my desk like a hunchback. Like, it kills my back. That's the only thing. It like kills my back to do these models, and especially the little metal ones. But like, it's just like I have a pair of metal clippers, and then I have this like little tiny like super skinny set of like needle nose pliers, and I just get all up on them and like
that's fascinating
pieces. And I have like different size punches that I use for different things. And like I use those to like bend and roll the little pieces of plastic because there's curved parts too. So you have this flat thing and you have to like make it into a curved thing.
Cool.
And so I'll like roll them around punches and all this stuff to like make them the right shape and all that crap, and then like put them together. And yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's weird to me that I'm like, as I'm getting older and I'm trying to like distance myself from like this social media stuff a little bit, especially with a job where I stare at a computer all day, to do this more very lo-fi, analog-y type stuff. It like quiets my brain down, like makes me feel good.
And to do it purposefully. You know, to actually make a plan and like do that.
Yeah. And then I get to stand back in my room and look at my Gundam models fighting each other. Like it's kind of a fun feeling.
Yeah. No, it's definitely cool. It's like in high school, I built and drove and wrecked crappy cars, and like, and I'm getting back into that, you know. It's you know, I just bought a very cheap Miata. That's what it's for, is to like drive around and have fun.
Well, I'm the opposite. I bought a very expensive Jeep and it's broke down too. So but yeah, so getting back to kind of our topic a little bit, I don't really know that there's a way that we're ever going to hold these companies accountable for the unintentional side effects. Because I think that's the thing we have to keep in mind too, is the algorithm isn't out there purposefully doing bad things to people. That's not right. Set up. It's set up with an end goal in mind, and that goal is engagement. And it just wants you to be engaged, and it's doing whatever the algorithm figures out is the most statistically advantageous way to create engagement.
Yeah. And the bottom of the engagement is money.
Right. Yeah. And in the bottom of that is ads.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. I do kind of feel bad. We have all this really great research. Should we, like, I don't want to do like an exposition man moment, but do we want to just like kind of read through some of the more overtly mind-blowing statistics?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to pull the statistics up on my phone, and let me kind of flip through these real quick and find some of the more crazy ones. Okay. So here's a really interesting one. The greater your level of Facebook addiction, the lower your brain volume. So MRI scans have found that Facebook users demonstrate a significant reduction in gray matter in the amygdala correlated with their level of addiction to Facebook. That's insane.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. Like it's literally destroying gray matter in your brain.
Yeah. It's like when you have a fish in a small tank, it doesn't grow.
Or a bearded dragon in a small tank. Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think bearded dragons. Oh, do they really?
I have one upstairs. We just got her a 4 foot by like.
Do they grow based on the size of their tank?
Yeah. Their environment can.
Wow. I didn't know bearded dragons did that.
Yeah. So we just got her this huge tank. It's like 4 feet by 4 feet by 2 feet. It's like,
so the bearded dragon's smaller tank was it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And now you've freed the dragon.
Yeah. He's going to get huge, and I am here for it.
And they wave at you.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
They can ride on your shoulder and stuff. Like they're fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's kind of a cool one. So 75% of screened content is viewed for less than 1 minute. According to a study that tracked computer multitasking across the course of one day, the results indicated that most people switch between contents every 19 seconds.
That's insane. That's crazy.
So that to me probably has a lot to do with the fact that if I look back on my life a little bit, I feel like my attention span was better when I was younger.
Oh, absolutely.
And now my attention span's garbage. Like I can't even sit down and watch a movie, and I fucking love movies.
And have you dipped into like TikTok or Instagram Reels at all?
No. So I'm trying. I have actively stayed away from TikTok, although people send them to me once they get exported from the platform, and I'm like, haha, they're funny. And I'm actively avoiding Instagram Reels.
I found the other day where you can find Instagram Reels and kind of went through them, and man, the content on there is just garbage. And it's like
on TikTok.
Oh well, this is Instagram Reels, but most of them are from TikTok. Most of them are just exported over.
Okay,
and it's just a lot of people. It's the equivalent of like making bad puns. It's just like very short 6-second it's Vine. It's just like short 6-second jokes that aren't really that funny.
The only content I'm really seeing, and I don't know if this says something about what I follow, probably not because I don't follow that much racy stuff, but the only content that I'm really seeing in Reels is like girls taking their pants off and twerking in Rite Aid.
Yeah, and that it seems to be that's what they're prioritizing. I see
It's
a
like
lot. I see more
boobs
people
and
talking
thick
about that.
girls' butts.
Right.
Like, that's all it is.
Yeah, well, probably because there's a
It's like
feedback loop.
porn light.
Exactly. That's probably what people are watching.
I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
This is a whole other episode we could talk about, but there's if you look at the economics of the porn industry.
Yeah.
The once stuff like OnlyFans came out.
Yeah.
The amount of money that was being spent on porn, and not just that, but the amount of money the performers were making exploded. It was like a 10 trillion % increase.
Wait, so like people making regular porn, there was more of that?
No, they were making more money.
Oh, okay.
Like if you think about like Jenna Jameson or something,
yeah.
from like the early thousands or whatever, she probably got paid like maybe $1,000 a video,
yeah,
or whatever, maybe. But if you go to something like OnlyFans, those people will share their like actual like financial income statements, and they'll make $5,000 the first week.
Yeah,
and then like as it's building or whatever, they'll be like, I made $50,000 last month.
OnlyFans is
like
interesting.
Posting pictures of my toes or something.
OnlyFans is interesting. It's from what I've seen people talking about it. There's definitely this weirdness where, porn is you're just watching people have sex.
Right.
OnlyFans, there's a level of accessibility there.
Yeah.
Where people can talk and interact, and that's like this other symptom of where social media has grown. Now people want to be able to talk to their porn stars. They want to be able to have a conversation. They
want to feel engaged.
Exactly.
Like as you buy the different levels, you can get customized content. You can get all this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it's caused this like explosion and people being able to make money that way.
Right. Which is interesting.
They like went to business for themselves, and OnlyFans and stuff like that gave them a platform to do it. And it's just nuts.
Yeah, it's startups. Do it.
Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Here's a good one. We talked about this one earlier. So 30% of 18 to 44-year-olds feel anxious if they haven't checked their Facebook in the last 2 hours. In fact, many are so hooked that 31% report checking their phone while driving, and 16% report checking it while doing it.
Wait, what was the numbers for driving and then having sex?
31%
while driving.
Check while driving. 16% check while doing it. So just less than 1 in 5.
Wow. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
I can't okay, let's tackle driving first.
Yeah. I get driving.
I get driving.
It's a horrible thing
because
to do, but
every stoplight I stop at, everybody's looking at their crotches, and I don't think they're actually just looking at their crotches. And so, but then
there's nothing down there to smile at.
No. I mean, even as a man, there's nothing to smile at down there at all.
No, it's all that.
And but the during sex thing, it reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where they like started incorporating food, and like George was eating a sandwich while he was having sex and he got busted. But like, I can't even picture a world where I would stop in the middle of sex to grab my phone.
Never. I wouldn't.
And it's not because I would be super into the sex. It would more be because I would be worried about my wife killing me. I think that would probably be the problem there. Because it's just, I couldn't understand that whole mentality. It's I don't know, but I guess 16% of people do it. So
yeah, I don't know. So there's some other ones in here about people being like, half of people report that their partner is also often distracted while they're trying to have conversations with them, which completely makes sense. I think everybody experiences that. 90% of cell phone users admit to using their phone during a social gathering, like spending time with their family or whatever.
Sure.
82% of millennials think it's okay to read text messages or emails while they're having social time, like with family or friends or whatever. 75% think it's okay to send texts and emails while they're having conversations with people. This one I thought was actually kind of interesting. So, with parental use of mobile devices during playtime with your children, there's been a study done that shows that it can lead to significant levels of child distress. A study of infant mothers indicate that infants showed greater unhappiness, fewer positive emotions, and were significantly less likely to play with their toys when mothers looked at their devices for as little as 2 minutes during the time that they were playing together.
Oh, wow. I see that. Like before COVID, when I would take my daughter to the playground,
Yeah.
I would see all the other moms on their phones, and they're just kind of like following their kid around and letting their kid run wild while they're like doing whatever they're doing on their phones. And it was pretty common. It was like everybody in the playground. And I mean, the kid notices.
I feel like most people just kind of sit around staring at their phone. And like,
yeah,
it's like, can you remember like being on the playground? I mean, I can't remember ever being on the playground, but I could imagine a situation where I was on the playground or something, and like I turn around and be like, Mom, did you see me do that thing? And they're like, nope, I was checking fucking Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Like, and kids definitely notice, because you see,
they absolutely notice. They're very I want to say astute or attentive. That's not the right words. They know when that shit happens. They can tell when you're not paying attention.
My daughter is a big fan of like taking your phone out of your hand. Like,
good.
Like a principal, like a school principal.
Good.
She just walks up and yanks it out of your hand.
Nice.
And then makes eye contact with you like you did something wrong.
She's judging you.
Oh yeah, she absolutely is. She absolutely is.
You deserve it.
I do.
Okay, so we do have a bunch of statistics about like mental health, mental health stuff. So let's talk about some of those. So these are not directly related to social media. These are just like general global mental health statistics. So at least 25% of people worldwide suffer from at least one mental disorder during their lifetime.
I'm surprised it's that low, to be honest.
Yeah. That feels really low to me now that I've read it out loud.
Yeah. I wonder if that's self-reported.
2 billion people have mental. So you see, that to me might be a skewed to statistic, depending on, I know where it came from. So I feel like it's sort of reliable because it came from the UN. But then I wonder how accurate that really is, because where are they getting that data from, really?
Yeah, I mean, when you go to like sub-Saharan Africa and start asking about mental disorders, they're like, no, I'm trying to find food.
Yeah, or I mean, even within the United States, you think about how difficult it is to find mental health care, how expensive it is, how stigmatized it is. You know, I feel like this is a very low number.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it should be more like half or more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, in my head, we're essentially like, our brains are essentially super high functioning tapioca. Like, there is, there's a 100% chance that basically everybody should have some kind of mental disorder, unless you're just so unself-aware that you're like one of those super happy people just floating through life all bubbly and you don't give a shit about anything.
Which that's probably 15% of people, maybe more.
Yeah. Are you oblivious? Are you happily unaware? Are you that guy from The Matrix who's like, ignorance is bliss? Stick me back into the machine. Like,
just gonna eat my steak dinner.
That's you.
Be done with it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, here's like a more financial based one. So this also came from the UN. So they're estimating that the global economic burden of mental health disorders is currently around $3 trillion a year, and that it's projected to exceed $6 to $9 trillion per year by 2030.
Again, seems low. That kind of seems, that's a lot of money, but it seems kind of low.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what was Hurricane Andrew? 26 billion?
I have no idea.
I mean,
it's the entire debt of the United States currently.
Yeah. Seems low.
Yeah.
Just take into account anybody that has a student loan probably has some sort of like mental distress issues.
Yeah.
And then look at that number and, extrapolate from there.
Yeah. And that, I wonder I would wonder how much this would compound on people with multiple mental health disorders.
Yeah, that's hard to
Like, if
say.
that would
Yeah.
even have an effect or, like, how that would play then. I'd be interested in knowing more about that. Um, okay, so this one also seems kinda low to me. 66% of people worldwide with a mental health disorder will fail to receive care
That's worldwide.
worldwide.
Yeah, again, seems low. Like
Yeah.
it's I can't imagine that there's people in like, you know, rural Russia that are really getting time face to face with a counselor, you know?
Yeah. I feel like it's low too.
Yeah. I mean, cuz like I have really good insurance and I've gone through issues where I've had problems trying to find like a mental health counselor and like gone back and forth. You
Yeah,
know?
same.
And
Like,
first world hashtag first world problems.
I know. We'll probably talk about this at some point. So I have had chronic body pain
Yeah.
issues for many, many years.
Yeah.
And this year is the first year where I've actually tried to find like a counselor who specializes specifically in people who have chronic pain problems.
Yeah.
And it was the most difficult and frustrating process I've done.
I can imagine.
It was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. It's horrible.
Like it took me weeks, probably 2 months of searching for someone every
Yeah.
day to finally find someone who could refer me to someone.
Yeah.
Like it was horrible.
And we live in a moderate sized city.
Yeah.
That's a well off city in a well off state. You know, it's
Yeah. Like you wouldn't believe how many people I called and they said, "Oh, I don't do hypnosis." I'm like, "I'm not calling about hypnosis." But apparently that's a thing that I learned.
Congratulations.
Apparently
Yeah.
a lot of people with chronic pain just do hypnosis. They don't actually do. It's weird. It's very weird. But chronic pain is a whole other different thing that we could talk about.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane. This one's not surprising to me at all. 90% of the nearly 1 million people worldwide who die by suicide every year have a mental disorder.
Yeah.
That's not shocking to me at all.
No.
Um,
It was 1 million a year?
this says 1 million people commit suicide every year. And of those million people, 90% of them have a mental disorder.
1 million seems low, but yeah, I mean,
Now
but
that
the
I'm
number sounds
reading
right.
it,
Yeah.
it sounds low. I know I got all of these statistics from reputable sites. Like I have,
Yeah.
I have the links and everything.
Well, I'm thinking I mean, probably when you get to like countries and in the third world, things like that, I doubt a lot of suicide is reported accurately.
That's probably very true.
A lot of suicide in the US isn't reported accurately.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of our data is kind of fucked up. But it would be better if we had better healthcare.
Yeah. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah. 70% of youths in the U.S. juvenile justice system have been diagnosed with mental illness. I mean, I'm not surprised by that at all.
Yeah, when you're a kid and you end up in the youth justice system.
Well, no,
yeah.
I think that they probably had it beforehand. So if you think so to me, this indicates a number of things. So my wife is a school teacher. And she's taught at a number of different schools. And one of those schools was a school that a lot of people had like a very weird preconceived notion that it's the school where the bad kids go. Like it's like the reject bad kids. And it really wasn't. These were the kids that just needed more help. They couldn't function in the normal school kind of situation where you had 35 kids in a classroom with one. Yeah. They just couldn't deal with that. And a lot of these kids had like really horrible home lives or some of them were homeless. Like they were living at the like American Legion and shit, they had nowhere to go. And I know, or I don't personally know this, but my understanding about this situation is that a number of these kids with that kind of like bad family home life situation had some kind of undiagnosed mental health issue.
Yeah.
And if these kids didn't succeed at this school, their next step was essentially juvie.
Yeah.
And I can just see how, with the way that our school system is currently set up and the amount of not enough funding that it has going on and our lack of mental health care in the United States, that especially with children, it could be very easy for a mental health disorder to go unrecognized and untreated. And the side effect of that is that they get into some sort of trouble that they don't necessarily deserve to be in, because of some sort of misunderstanding or an undiagnosed and untreated mental health disorder where this could have been prevented by better care. And
Yeah.
then they end up in juvie. And then we turn around and figure out all of these kids have mental health problems. And really the symptom was they didn't get the mental health they need, not these are bad kids that are in juvie, and kids in juvie have mental health disorders.
Yeah.
Like that's the way that I read that statistic.
No, and I agree. I mean, because take a look at that with the insight of looking at low income neighborhoods too, and middle income and high income and all those different things.
Yeah.
When you start looking at like socioeconomic stuff, those numbers are only going to skyrocket, and it makes total sense.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another statistic about kids that I think is really interesting. And this to me is a very sad one as well. So 40% of students with mental health disorders graduate from high school compared to 76% of their peers.
Oh, so 60% of kids with mental health disorders don't graduate high. Is that kind of what it's saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you have a mental health disorder and you're in school, you have a 60% chance to not graduate.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean when I was in 10th grade, I like I was saying before, I was like an overweight kid. I was picked on. I had really bad PTSD, had all these issues.
Yeah.
And I dropped out in 10th grade. And I dropped out and I homeschooled myself and ended up going to college like a year later. But it makes sense. Like I knew several kids that were in the same boat, that had issues, and they dropped out of school also.
So. Yeah, like this kind of thing to me is the kind of stuff that just it shouldn't be happening.
Yeah,
there should be so much better mental health support, especially in the most advanced country in the world. You know what I mean? Like we should care about our people more than this.
Yeah, and it's a matter of, people say it's a matter of money, but the money can be moved around and looked at in different ways and be used more effectively.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a really good video that I've seen a number of times on YouTube, and it's really cool. And if you haven't seen it, I'll try and find the link to it. And it actually doesn't talk about mental health at all. It's talking about sort of the financial and global impact of humanitarianism.
Okay.
And there's like all this stuff that shows that when you provide humanitarian aid in a way that you can raise people up and you essentially teach those people to fish with the aid instead of giving them a fish, that those people just foster this like better society, and then enough good comes out of it that it's not like a zero sum where when you provide humanitarian aid you are losing something, because really you're getting something back out of that cycle of aid. And that to me is like a similar situation here.
Yeah,
where, like,
absolutely.
Like imagine, because to me, and I don't know if we'll ever talk about this, but we might, I have a very weird perspective on the idea of like Second Amendment rights and like gun stuff and like shootings in schools and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the statistics of those people, it's like 100% of them have had undiagnosed mental health issues.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe not even undiagnosed, but they have had some sort of mental health disorder.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so to me, I look at a situation like that and I'm like, is it really the hardware?
Right.
Or is this a mental health problem?
Right.
And the fact that we are basically discarding mental health altogether.
And
it's even with insurance and money and a good job, it's hard to get it. So imagine a kid who has no money, no control over anything,
right?
Who can't get it, and then they turn around and shoot their school. I'm like,
and grows up, in a place where they can't
become
talk
a psychopath. You know, I'm like, are you surprised by this? You know, because to me, I'm not at all.
No, same. Yeah.
So I don't know. That to me, I feel like we need to do better there.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, so, and this one is probably a big contributing factor to this. So globally, there is less than one mental health professional per every 10,000 people.
Wow.
Talk about a lack of support. That's like having a classroom with 100 students and one teacher, but it's not college and it's not a lecture. It's middle school.
And it's 10,000 students and not one
with one teacher. It's 10,000 students and one teacher. Yeah.
That was globally. Yeah. I wonder what the numbers are for like United States. And then I would love to see the numbers of like how many teachers for every kid. Like it'd be interesting to see all that.
Yeah, I don't know. Teachers is another one. And that one's kind of tough because it really is dependent upon like a number of things, like what school system you're in, where you're located. Like location based funding for schools is another one that is kind of fucked up and weird. What type of school it is, you know what I mean? Like there's all kind of factors there that affects like the population mix, the what's that word? The demographic.
Yeah.
And the number of students and stuff like that. Like at my wife's current school, her classes max out at 20. But at her previous school, her classes maxed out at 6.
Oh, wow.
And at her previous school before that, her classes maxed out at 35. And this is all within 2 counties.
Yeah.
In North Carolina. So it's like...
I think my high school was like 30, 40 kids.
Yeah. And the demographics were wildly different between the 3 schools.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, that's one of those like really kind of tough ones. So, all right. I think that really is kind of the mind-blowing ones, I think.
Yeah.
And this is just some of them. Like we have
it's just so
many more statistics besides this that talk about a bunch of other stuff as I was like running down the rabbit hole of research and all the webs that we could get into. And I know this one wasn't that conspiracy theory-y, but I think this is a good way to just like kind of get into the conspiracy. I think next episode is going to have a lot more conspiracy to it than this one.
Yeah, we're kind of setting up for a big thing.
Yeah, and I do think this was a little bit of like a overwhelming undertaking for the first episode.
Yeah.
So I think our future episodes are going to be a lot more focused than this. I think we just wanted to start very broad, and as we go into the episodes, get a little more focused. But
cool.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in this time. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah. Stick around.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Brewluminati. Our intro and outro music is written by Dungeness. Want to learn more about the topics we cover and who we are? Join us on Facebook and Instagram at Brewluminati Podcast for behind-the-scenes content and updates. Do you have mystical powers of insight or just questions, suggestions, and feedback? Reach out to us at thebrewluminati@gmail.com. Are you ready to immerse yourself into the inner circle? Visit patreon.com/Brewluminati Podcast. For the same price as a cup of coffee or sandwich you won't remember, because of mind control, you can join the Brewluminati and lift the veil on the true mysteries of the universe. Your membership to the Conclave unlocks access to our secret Discord server, bonus Patreon-only content, behind-the-scenes talks, and much more. Every dollar spent not only helps us reveal the truths of the world, but also frees us to make the show better, weirder, and allows us to go deeper and deeper into the void while funding our next beer run. When we're not talking conspiracies and beer, we're passionate about saving the forgotten puppies and kitties of the world. 10% of every dollar you donate goes directly to the Best Friend Pet Adoption Agency. They are a local 501c3 all-breed, all-foster cat and dog rescue that will save the life of a pet who never had a chance. Keep an eye out because we'll be posting pictures of the lives our listeners save. For more information on Best Friend Pet Adoption, head over to bfpa.org. Join us again next week for another episode of Brewluminati. We know you will, because again, mind control is real.